Hello everyone, and welcome to the Deepbluerenegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deepbluerenegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 204. Today is Sunday, October 29th, 2017, and I'm glad you can join me today. It's been a while. There's probably quite a bit to show you guys, which is exciting for sure. What was it after I was wondering if I could sneak one in right after Rhinebeck, but no, not so much. I even missed recording yesterday. There really wasn't too much of a reason to miss that. But, oh well, such is life. There's nothing in my knitting bag right now. Like, life is filled with chaos. But I did finish a thing today. That might have been why I actually missed recording yesterday, because I was trying to finish it and all sorts of drama ensued, but now it's done. So this is my Color Affection. It's a Vera Valimaki pattern, and there's quite a lot of it. So what I have here is, this is where I was a month ago-ish, maybe. This is where I was 2 weeks ago here, and then this is how much I've completed since I talked with you guys last, I think. Or this was the marker I had. I'm trying to think. How much had I missed? What is this place? Where am I? Oh well. So I'd left a marker in, or I'd put this in at some point, and then worked on it. I feel that this section here was probably my Arkansas climbing trip, and then this last bit was how much I managed to do on my New York trip, with probably a little bit extra because I had only started the plain rows at the very end. It was totally a game of yarn chicken, of which I lost. So I was binding off last night, like, okay, I'm gonna be, or binding off like yesterday, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be done, and then I realized I had this much more bind off to do, and exactly that much yarn to do. It's like, nope. Just nope. So I had to rip out all of that bind off, and, redo it. But I think everything came together very nicely. I'm trying to show sort of the progression of gradient that showed up in this. Definitely all very autumny colors, but it does match my coat. So that red at the very end definitely matches my coat. And so then this end is sort of the tight end of the Color Affection, and then this end I think is the more loosey-goosey one. And you can see sort of the trademark swoopiness of it all. I made a couple of choices that were different than the pattern. I ended up, after I was done doing all the short rows, you're supposed to launch into the border, and instead I kept doing the 3 stripe rows until I ran out of one of my colors. Excuse me. Filled with snot, I might actually have a legitimate cold. I don't know. Could be exciting. And so that meant that some of this went maybe a little bit longer, and then once I ran out of that color, then I did the ending, but there really wasn't, like, the red ended up being pretty well diluted because of that. And I'm showing you guys the wrong side because I think I like how the wrong side turned out a bit better in the grand scheme of things. So this is the long edge, and then it's all swoopy. So I think I like the way the colors blended a little bit more that way. We'll bring it up close. Okay. So it just sort of made it look maybe a bit more unified that way. If we get it really close, you can see. You can see. So, unfortunately, I ran out of daylight today. So, it is... It probably also sort of matches this. So, it is nice and big, as 3 color shawls tend to be. But then sort of has that unifying, all these colors do go together, subtle stripiness to it. I find to be very enjoyable. And then the little curly ends. So I still will need to block this bad boy, but that shouldn't be too crazy. I'm pretty happy with how I wove in all the ends. I'm really happy with this last little bit, how you can see the orange to red gradient in it. I wasn't sure, but there definitely wouldn't have been enough red for a proper border anyways. Not sure why that worked out the way it did, but whatever, no big deal. So, it is complete. I'm probably gonna have to make a new mindless project to replace it, because I need some mindless projects in my life right now. Like, what would it be? Like, I took it on a climbing trip and did quite a lot of work there, and then took it to New York and got quite a lot of work done there. And then, whatever, this week that I've been back, or this partial week that I've been back, it was sort of the primary thing I wanted to work on, so. So, it is complete, and now I have a color affection of my own, so that's cool. And I think, what would it be? These wouldn't be the colors that I normally pick for myself, but I think it does look nice on and that sort of thing, so. And because I completed it, I can, whatever, enter it into the Halloween Knit All the Things cal. I was a little bit worried that I had way too much yarn, but I sort of burned through quite a lot of it at night, so I was like, yay, I can finish in time for the 31st of October, so I'll probably take, I don't know, I should take some FO shots, but the daylight's gone now, so, oh well. So, another big shawl for my collection. But, pretty happy overall with how things came together. I don't know, now that it is complete, I do sort of like the right side as well. And it's sort of interesting to see how the gradient turned out. So, yay. So, will I block it? Maybe. I don't know. Garter doesn't need blocking as much as other things do. So, that was the primary recipient of my love this week. The secondary recipient actually did get a pretty good amount of love. First things first, I have a finished sock. At least one. So this is the Everdeen Socks by Yvonne Reynolds, Beldame Knits, and while the stripiness is coming off pretty clearly on the camera, you still can get a decent impression of the pattern. Maybe if we could implement the shadows the right way. Whatever. For some reason the camera isn't cooperating very well, but so this is a cables and lace pattern that I'm doing in Trekking XXL, which is awesome sock yarn. And then I ended up choosing the variation where I actually grafted this way on the sock instead of this way on the sock. So for some reason this little point here shows up where my big toe is. Whatever. And I have probably 1.5 inches of the second sock done. So what would it be? I think I have maybe 1 or 2 more little cable repeats before I launch into the leg pattern on this guy. So I'm keeping it with me to make sure that things are on track. If I was more suspicious, I would also weigh my ball of yarn, because it's sort of diffused, but there's a lot of it there. Hopefully the first sock isn't more than 50 grams. I've been living dangerous without a scale. Oh, I'll weigh it soon. I don't have a scale handy. Oh, there it is. My scale's no longer lost, but it's over there. So. But it is coming along, and this is my only knitting project right now. I'm probably going to cast on a hat. Why hat, you ask? It's very sad. My favorite hat. Like the hat of my love. The first hand spun that I was really proud of. So lost, it's not even funny. I have no clue where it is. No clue. Don't remember the last time I wore it. Definitely my favoriteest hat ever. Like, I haven't been knitting very many hats since then because I had that hat, and that hat was awesome and it made me happy. So, what I mean, my Rhinebeck purchases will reflect my lack of a hat. I eventually found the correct thing, but I think I bought 2 other things trying to replace it in different ways from other people, so. So, on the spinning front, I've worked on 2 things. So if you ever needed an invitation to start talking to random people, spindle spinning at Rhinebeck is definitely much more effective than spindle spinning at the airport. So I am further into my travel project. This might be a travel project for a long, long time. I'm still working on the big ball. It's the journey. So this is on my the yak's just going everywhere. This is on my Jerry Brock elephant spindle, and this is the Greenwood Fiber Arts or Fiberworks or something like that. 50/50 yak silk in the arcade colorway that I'm making a 2-ply fractal with, and I still have oodles left to go on this ply. Whatever, such is life. So it's coming along. It was good fun to be spinning on it as my travel project. It just sort of follows me around. I'd probably keep it in my knitting bag because it's not like it's a really big project, but it continues. And even though I haven't been home a lot in recent weeks, oh, my goodness gracious, I had like a little bit of like a fiber explosion bringing this up here. But I did get some more done on my Nest Torfino, so. But my ball came off and stuff and things, I don't know. So I'm now on my 5th of the 6 balls for my fractal 2-ply, and I'm actually just going to put it all on one bobbin and then 2-ply it that way. But it continues. I managed to finish off ball number 4 last night, so it isn't like I haven't been not working on it at all. The hope would have been to finish it in the month of October. Yeah. Oh well, I'm going to be home a lot more in November, so hopefully I can crank through my last 2 spins. I was excited. I did get, I asked, and my question was, do I need to make a finished yarn for the fiber I put in my bin? Because in order to make a finished yarn, I have to dye the other 2 plies of the sweater spin I'm working on with my fleece. And dyeing's a lot of work, and I'm not sure when I can fit it in. and the answer was, it's fine. So I'm gonna keep combing my balls, and I'll make 2 ounces of singles, or probably more than 2 ounces of singles, and then hold that ready to go, and that'll count as my last spin. So I don't need to dye the other parts and comb the other parts and do that whole dog and pony show. All I have to do is what would it be? Make the singles for, or what was it? Make singles of my last spin. And then hanging out up there somewhere, it may not even be in sight at this point, would be my last regular fiber spin, so not too shabby. I have a suspicion that my next spin the bin will actually be the bag of fiber I showed you last time, with the 5 different bumps of nest in it. Just saying. that counts for actually a good portion of it, and then throw in the other bits of fleece too. So, we'll make it work. It's not too crazy. So, but it feels like I have like this great big giant backup of spinning projects. I have no time to knit at home. All I can do is spin. Yeah, it's funny like that. So, I forgot to show this stash position last week. My mother-in-law is very sweet and generally finds neat little presents for me. So this was my super duper belated birthday present. Is that she gave me a bag from 3 Bags Full. They are a Bagmaker in Maine, and she thought their thought process was really cool. So one for her and one for me. And it's this like pastel-y pink, this like hot pink, and then little blue flowers. And this one totally cracks me up. So, the people who make Cleaner also make a bag called Sweat, which I think the purpose of it is to not let, if something's wet, you can put it in here and it won't come out. So she gave me an alpaca bag, which I'm probably going to be using for my workout clothes. Alpaca butt. So, my workout clothes bag totally died, so I'm super duper excited that I have this one. And then it rolls up actually into a pretty small thing. And then you can snap it closed or not, depending on your mood. So, I was excited about that because I never knew I needed it, but I'm very happy I have it now, so. But I feel silly for forgetting to talk about that last week. I don't even know what other random stuff is floating around. Hopefully I didn't lose that here. I might have though. Okay. So, this was how much I had left of the color that then triggered me to start the border, which will stick there for now. And then I have an unput away needle, random dirt quarters. It appears my knitting bag is now empty. This other bag. Oh, good. Found it. You want to see the magnitude of yarn chicken I was playing? It was sort of ridiculous. I swear, we can see the magnitude of the yarn chicken I was playing. Like there's some, might be getting a little crazy in my bag right now. It might be due for a cleaning. So I have maybe like 6 feet of yarn left, maybe 7. So not a whole lot of room for error there, to say the least. But life's an adventure sometimes. I definitely couldn't have made it any longer. That was impossible. So, I'll probably be stashing those in the secret place of handspun. I swear I had a bag with the third color, because I'll probably need to like weigh them. I'll probably need to weigh them to figure out yardage and that sort of thing, or back calculate yardage, as I do sometimes, so that I can have good counts. So I'll actually probably need to wind this off in a knitting hottie, even though I did it in a little ball. But not a lot left. I swear there was another bag. But it's very lost now. So what I did not do is start new projects. I was prepared though. What was it? I ended up darning some socks and then wearing them. That was a pretty good playing activity. It's like whatever, being prepared. But I still have, did I even show you guys? So I like using Sharpie markers as Nasta pens because I can hold the yarn on the little cap and then wind balls. And the short answer is that at SSK 2015, I bought this sock blank and was double-stranded, and then realized later, I don't knit socks two at a time. I'm one at a time person. So these balls of yarn are ready to go for a pair of matchy-matchy sock blank socks. And it turned out really gorgeous. So in the sock blank, it was this super duper saturated blue and purple. And because it was double knit, the dye didn't take all the way in all of the places. Bring it in. Bring it out. There we go. So it has like white speckles in it. Which I found to be really cool. I probably won't start new socks till I finish the Everdeen Socks, but I'm ready for when that time comes. And that was a pretty decent car ride activity. For some reason I thought I was going to finish my socks in the shawl. I'm eternally an optimist. I also brought yarn to do another thing, which is to cast on a hat, because my favorite hat is gone. And this is actually yarn that I recently spun, which is one ply of the marl from Julie Moreno's spinning class, and then the other two plies are actually Zephyr. So it's a very soft, lovely yarn. What would it be? The marl is probably just merino, but then the white in it is merino silk. So I was thinking of turning this into a hat. Focus. Okay. So I was prepared. I even probably could have stolen one of the Sharpie markers and wound the ball, but I never got that far. Maybe I can wind it now. That would have made a lot of sense. I don't know why I grabbed the skein of yarn and did nothing with it, but oh well. Come on, focus. Okay. For some reason, it's having a rough time today. So, I have this desire to replace my hat. Because the hat I am wearing now, while warm because it's mostly alpaca, isn't super duper windproof. For some reason, it's not very dense. It is very cute though. It has a flap. And it involves my favorite color of Lomisa, which is Amcolton Polar. And cool pooling and the whole bit. It was supposed to go with my pooling scarf. But it's not a sufficient hat. It's a cool hat. I like wearing it. It's also good for fancy times as well. But not the right hat for riding around the convertible with the top down. Not that this is super duper thicker. This is a very fine yarn. Good thing I have my wraps prints gauge handy. We'll make it work. No, that's probably 16. So, I mean, I don't remember what 16 even means. So, I'd say fingering, probably. And then I would probably knit it pretty densely in order to get a good warm hat. Not sure. But what would it be? I'm hopeful. I need a hat. So I'll be winding something tonight and casting on more than likely. So I had a very lovely trip to New York. It was good fun. Would be one of my favorite parts had nothing to do with the knitting. I ended up going to a Michelin star restaurant with my best friend from high school. That was amazing. Amazing. We have made plans for future endeavors along these lines because New York City has fantastic restaurants. And what would it be? And I have opened up my house for when it finally reaches the point, whatever. If you're from the north, there reaches a point sometime February and March where you'll like cut people to get out of winter. And it's pretty nice in Dallas then. So, whatever, that was a lot of fun. And it's sort of the case where I'm the sort of person where I just pick back up where you left off. So, it was good fun to hang out with him and his significant other and whatever, his happy little dog. So, it worked out. We were wandering around New York City and specifically Chelsea. I put in, it was an immense number. Like, I think we walked 8 miles that day, just wandering around. And it was the case where he stopped by. He was like, "Hey, I found a yarn shop. It's really high ranked." And it turned out to be the Lion Brand store. So, I had to laugh a little bit about that because they definitely had like all of the things that would be all of the acrylics that you could find at any big box store. But I was able to tick 2 things off my list that I'd never tried before. So, I ended up getting this black wool stainless steel blend, and it's made in Japan, and I'm actually assuming they contracted out to the people who do the habu, because it looks exactly the same. So, I was thinking of actually combining it with my cherry tree, because that also has the pinks and blacks in it already, and to make maybe a more architectural style of knit. So I got 2 because they were like 275 yards a piece, 273 yards a piece. So I figured that would cover and make a big enough lacy object with that. So I'm really interested to see how it turns out. I don't know, I just found it to be very interesting. It was something that had fascinated me before. And it is 1/2 ounce, so it's pretty fine. 17 or 14 grams, so not a ton of weight, very, very fine, but should be interesting, and like not too unreasonable in the grand scheme of things. And then I only really had one thing on my list. Let's see if I can find it. And I also found it at the Lion Brand store. Oh. Here we go. So one thing that I've decided I do need in my life is a cleaner. So this is, would it be a tool to remove pills from sweaters? And I ended up getting the travel size because I figured that was more my speed. And so what it has like 3 different textures depending on sort of the size of pill you're dealing with. And I've noticed with some of my sweaters they definitely do need a good cleaning associated with them. So this one has, I just put the finest one on, so then I can take this, rub it over the pills, and then use the black side to brush them off. And then it has this neat little traveling case and instructions. Even a little plastic thing. Who knew? So I figured that was going to be a decent investment for making sure that my hand knits look nice. Because some of my hand-spun sweaters, for better or for worse, are a little rougher looking sometimes. Especially this guy, for example, might need a little bit of love itself. So I've tried it before and knew I wanted one. And I was really happy that they had one. So that was cool. Then, what was it? I ended up taking the train from New York City up to Rhinebeck. The conductors were so confused. They're not used to so many people getting off at the Rhinebeck stop. So it is the case where Bard College is nearby, so there were a lot of professors and students and that sort of thing, but there were a ton of knitters. So I ended up talking with the person who was sitting in the seat in front of me was a knitter, and we were talking a little bit before the train got going. And whatever, they were my people hanging out in this car. And then I get off the train, and I call my mother-in-law, and they're like 2.5 hours away. When I had talked to her and in the morning, they thought they were going to be there somewhere between 3:30 and 4:30, so I showed up at the 4 o'clock train, and that was a lie. So I found some rather bedraggled knitters who were trying to find a way to rent a car so they could go to their hotel. And we ended up sharing a lift to the to the Best Western, which is where the Indian Tangled event happened. And then I was hanging outside talking to random people and eventually ran into some people I knew. And then ran into a big group of people that I knew. It was a lot of fun to meet all these people that I'd only talked to online. Hugs were given all around. Eventually, my mother-in-law and her knitting group arrived, and then we did a quick sweep through India Tangled, and by that point it was pretty close to closing time, and I decided to pick up a skein, because I wanted to replace my hat. I brought yarn to knit a replacement of the hat, but this intrigued me. I've never heard of this company before. They're Molly Girl Yarn, so I felt sort of intrigued. And this is a sport weight, which is 62.5% Super Rush Merino, 25% Llama, and 12.5% Sea Cell. The colorway is Cold as Ice, and it's very soft. You would definitely see some of the llama hair on it, but I don't think that's going to be a big deal in the grand scheme of things. You know what I mean? And I thought that this would make a very cool hat. Because for some reason I wandered around the whole thing, and there was some stuff that was like, what would it be? There were some dyes I knew, some I had never heard of, but for some reason this ended up calling to me as like, ooh, pretty. So I don't know, because it's, because of the llama content, I'm wondering if it's going to be a little bit warmer than the merino and silk. Not sure. It certainly would be pretty. Don't know if they would go together though. This one I think is a little bit more dull, though they do share some colors. Oh. So I got this one. I might cast it on. Fondling it, it feels very nice. Now the only minus I have is that they do say on the label, may bleed for the first few washes. Like, come on guys. Setting colors, chemistry. So it was only after I bought it, and that wasn't really the situation where you could be like, Not too much I could do about that. So, what was it? The next day was actual proper Rhinebeck. So that was the case where I got to go for the first time. I was a little bit surprised because it turned out the group I was with scattered and then would group together again. I hadn't known that when I started, so I didn't have a shopping buddy for the first day, where I'd run into people I knew and be like, hey! And then wander away for a while and be like, why am I by myself in this place? So, what would it be? It'd probably be a little bit better if I just had, like, one shopping buddy. Like, that's the way I like doing DFW Fiber Fest, is I make sure someone else from my knitting group is along so that we can, like, help each other out. Sometimes you push, sometimes you pull. So I did much better on Sunday. I was able to find more people that I knew. It was also way less insane on Sunday. So the first place that I went was Bosworth. Or the first place that I went that I actually bought something was Bosworth. I ended up getting a mini in zebra wood, so you can see all of the cool stripes. And then the cool thing about the Bosworth spindles is that, they're optimized for lateness, so they're forcing all of the mass to the outside of the spindle for good rotary inertia. Really gorgeous work. Actually, it's pretty cool. I hadn't noticed this before, but see that little shiny bit there? It's actually been weighted to make the spinning better. So, that's pretty cool. I hadn't noticed that before. Or offset for the notch, I don't know. Cool. It spun really nicely. I tried out some sample fiber that might just be floating in the bottom of some bag. I neglected to pin up all of the different crazy coffee places I went to, but it would be really gorgeous tools. So that was sort of the theme for what was going on there. So hopefully, my next travel project will probably be on this bad boy. Then I made a strategic mistake. I'd ran into someone and they're like, oh yeah, we'll meet here. And so I wandered over to the Golding booth, and some of them really spoke to me, but not for $150, they didn't. I couldn't justify it. They were really gorgeous tools, but couldn't do it. Wandered back to the Bosworth booth, the people I were trying to meet still weren't there, and so I wandered to the fleece show. I found out later that the secret to not buying a fleece was not wandering into the fleece sale. I managed to get a very lovely one. Let's see. Oh, here we go. And it's currently in my bathtub. Or most of it is currently in my bathtub. But I was looking for BFL, and so I looked at every single fleece there, and not a single one was BFL. Either it had been bought already, because I had probably wandered by closer to 11. There had already been 2 hours of fleece being sold. When I first wandered into the fleece show, there were still 2 second place fleeces left. By the time I wandered out, they were gone. But I looked at all of them, and then I was like looking at the ratings and whatever, touching everything. And I decided to get a long wool. I actually got a Romney Lamb. And this is actually, I combed this up in the grease. A lot of the dirt fell out of it when I did that, which was cool. And it had top marks in all of the categories. So, expected length, quality, it wasn't coated. Oh, it wasn't coated. Oh my gosh. And through whatever. What would it be? And this other person was sort of by it, and then I just snagged it. Some of the fleeces in there were all top marks and $250. This was all top marks at $50. And I'm like, okay, I can swing $50. So it was, I believe it was 5 pounds, 8 ounces. So pretty big for a lamb sleeves, but it was only 7 months old because I figured that was going to be nice and soft and lovely. So I am really pleased with how it combed up, and I started washing it. I did a bad job skirting it. There was a lot of poop everywhere, so much poop. That was my bad. I apparently did not break it apart in the appropriate way to get the parts I did not want to stick into water out. I spent a couple of hours, I did 3 soaks to get most of it out, and then I started washing half of it, and I think I grabbed bigger chunks than I was supposed to. I don't know. It was strange. And so probably tonight I'll go back and finish or start washing other parts of it. I let it soak all day today. Oh, excuse me. So, my husband had a friend over, and apparently he had wandered into when I was trying to, like, get the fleece out of the murky, opaque brown water. And then he calls the friend over, like, "You have to see this!" And so he wanders in, and they figured out that I needed a fishnet to sort of capture all of the rest of the fleece so that I could drain the tub and refill it again. But Leigh was like, "Hey, we need to get, like, we're gonna go have Mexican food." It was like, this is a bad time. I need to shower. So we eventually got it worked out. So I did 2 more warm water rinses, and after that it wasn't looking quite so gross anymore, and then I started doing the Dawn, and then it'd be like Dawn, hot water, 20 minutes, wash, rinse, repeat. Well, whatever. I just kept doing Dawn until the water stopped looking brown and murky, but I might have not quite gone it far enough, because I realized after I was doing the rinse stage there was still poop. There was still poop, so I'm like, why didn't I skirt this? Oh well. It'll be gorgeous. And hopefully it's all dissolved now. I have pictures on Instagram if you guys are interested in the process. So I might spin this as a sample at some point, but spin the bend takes priority. Maybe I'll even do it on a spindle. Who knows? So, what was it? So at that point, I was carrying around a bag of fleece. I ran into someone else that I knew, and then we ran into my mother-in-law, and we dropped the fleece off at the car, and I took off my sweater because I was proud, and I got lots of compliments on my blue bohas, but it was too hot for sweaters. But fleece went back in the car. And then everyone scattered again. Oh well, that was a good time for me to randomly run into work, and a miracle occurred. So, got the fleece. Obviously, after I get it clean, it may languish for a while, because I'm still dealing with the fleece I bought in 2014. Whatever, it's getting close now. It's much closer than it's been for a long time. Had I realized that wandering into the fleece show was going to result in you buying a fleece, then maybe I shouldn't have wandered into the fleece show. Thankfully, my friend had a burner suitcase, which allowed me to buy a fleece. Hey, I have the suitcase. It was very stuffed. Very stuffed. Oh well. So then, I started wandering farther. I thought I'd seen everything, but that was a lot. There was a lot. A lot to see. I missed places on the first day. I didn't even know where I was going. And the next thing I ended up getting was a sampler pack. There was like some tent, and they were representing the Jacob sheep, and I had seen some Jacob sheep in the fleece show, but it was expensive, and I would have to clean it. I was okay with cleaning the Romney, but not a Jacob. So I got this little 4-color pack. There we go. Glare. So 2 gray shades, a darker charcoaly one, and then a white one. And then this is from Jenny the Romney is from Anchorage Farm in Socrates, New York, which is in Dutchess County. I'm wondering if the fleece show is only very local to the Rhinebeck area. It was $20 for 8 ounces, and that was totally my speed. So I might be making some delightful color of Jacob sort of thing. It's definitely roving. There's definitely some hay in it. Whatever. Not everything in your life can be top. But I thought that was really cool. What would it be? And this is Belvedere, New Jersey. And then the other thing that I ended up doing was I was trying to replace my hat, and I decided I should buy fiber to replace my hat now. The second thing that I have purchased, the second thing that I purchased at Rhinebeck to try to replace the hat. So this is Gnome Spun. I have worked with them before. I actually made a sweater vest towards the very beginning of my podcast. This was probably the project I was working on when I started my podcast. So this is Debbulé. I've never spun Debbulé before. And it had all of the same bright, crazy colors that the hat I wanted to replace had. So the blues and the purples and the reds all together, with maybe a little bit of white, but that would probably just make it nice and heathery looking. Very soft, really nice fiber. I really enjoyed spinning with this fiber before. It would be any information, and it was 5 ounces, so it was maybe a little bit more, but what would it be? This is like 142 grams, so pretty decent amount. So I ended up picking it back. It was a case when I went up and I'm like, did you bring fiber? Because I saw the yarn. And I was like, yeah, no, because he was sharing a booth with Holiday Yarns, and so it was in the corner. I'm like, ooh. And so I saw this one, and I'm like, replace the hat! Replace the hat! I was on a mission, I guess. And then I was like, wait a second. I could do this right. And so I went and bought the exact same colorway that I had originally spun the hat with in fiber optic. So this is the This was originally a Knit Girls Spin Along colorway. So this is the Rouge Violet Cerulean gradient. And this was what I needed to do at the start. So I'll be spinning this probably as a 2-ply and recreating the hat because I really love that hat. It won't have like the same special factor of my first hand spun I really liked, but it will be better. So this is whatever the third thing, and after that I'm like, okay, I've replaced the hat 3 times over. Let's stop. Whatever. Maybe there'll be a coordinating, what would it be, thingamabob with this, because they definitely are very similar colorways. Maybe I'll be matchy. Who knows? And I decided that I needed to, like, hide from the market for a while. I did lots of wandering. I said hi to people. But eventually I found a bench and I just hung out with my mother-in-law knitting for a while and just people watching and that sort of thing, because it was just like, I didn't need more buying opportunities, you know what I mean? Then we ended up going to a dinner that was hosted by one of the moderators of the Completely Twisted and Arbitrary group. That was so much fun. It was so awesome. The food was really good. It was a lot of fun talking with everyone. I really did enjoy that a lot. And then one of the women was like, I have this Corriedale, and it doesn't make me happy. Do you want some? And she had like this grocery bag with this like 4-ounce bump. And she's like, I have bunches of it. Like, you're more than welcome to have it. It's like, I can't take it all. So it ended up getting split up between 5 of us. And I think I grabbed about a pound. And it is gorgeous. So this woman, Gloria, has really, really good taste in fleeces. She normally gets her fleeces at Maryland Sheep and Wool. And she wasn't super duper excited about it because there's some spinning oil in it. And so it does smell mechanical. That's, I think, the only way that I can describe what's going on. But it's super duper ridiculously white. Like, compare this to my dirty Romney. I've like left like a little dirt pile. Super duper ridiculously white and very fine and very short. Very short, staple, lots of crimp. And I think this will be a lot of fun to dye and then spin. Dye it in the wool. See what happens. So, I ended up getting this for free. She was a masterful, Ariel was a masterful enabler. Someone else ended up taking like 8 bumps. I think she had the last, and like Laura was like, come on, please, take it. Oops. Whatever, so, free fiber. So, on the last day, I ended up getting simply less. I was haunted by the Harrisville Designs yarn. They had this really, really gorgeous sport weight. And dyed in the wool, heathery. It wasn't necessarily the special, like, Harrisville Designs is the same mill that makes Shelter. So it had all that prettiness, but it maybe wasn't necessarily from specific sheep like Shelter is, because that's, I believe, Columbia and Targhee. They just were like virgin. But so gorgeous, like, there's colorwork sweaters and cable sweaters and what in the world, and so I've added quite a few sport fingering weight sweaters to my favorites. I may order it later. It's probably for the best I didn't buy it, because I had sort of hit how much money I'd brought at that point. But I did ended up pulling out the credit card for the last two purchases, or whatever the last two purchases. So, I found out at the spinner meetup that there was actually, oh dear, someone who is selling Jenkins spindles. I really do like the Jenkins spindles, so I decided that it would be good to go. It turned out that they were having a 10% off if you bought two, so I ended up getting an egret with this, and the bottom, what's wood burn in there, is actually dandelions, and it is lace bark and elm, and it's a 40 gram, so pretty big spindle. And then I got a finch, and it is tulip wood, and it is 10 grams, so very, very small little thing. And should be very gorgeous. So I really did like the dandelion fluff detail. Someone who I was talking to was like, man, if that was there, I would have totally bought it. I was like, whatever. I'm trying to remember. It was a case where they were a spinning place, and they actually put in an order for 150, and there were, like, I don't know, probably 30 left by the time I got there. So it was interesting. I did appreciate that I was able to fondle them all in person. I'm not planning on doing a big trip out west where Jenkins normally sells, so I figured that would be fine. I was sort of the case where I was trying to spread out the weights of my spindles so they could all be sort of differentiated, if that makes any sense. So maybe what it would be, so it'd be the case where if I do decide, or whatever, the project that I would spin with this would actually probably be a fairly thick yarn, whereas this would be probably more lace weighty. And then I thought the insanity was over, but it wasn't quite, and I did visit Miss Bosworth. So I ended up getting 2 skeins of yarn. So this is going to be a toy for my niece. The colorway is Wolf's Den, and it's her yummy 2-ply. And I'm going to be knitting a dog, and it's going to be a really gorgeous little brindle dog, because that girl loves dogs so much. And then this other skein will be a gift, but I will get to have the joy and happiness of knitting that. So it is called it's the Babette, or actually both of them are Babettes. They're repeatable? I don't know. Whatever. So 4 ounces, 400 yards, probably so a little bit heavier for the fingering weight. But I figured that both of these are going to be good colors for their intended recipients. I was trying specifically to find something that looked doggy colored, because my niece, she just loves them. So I got the A-OK from my sister. I was like, hey, I was thinking of knitting her something related to dogs. And she was like, that's such a great idea. And then it was the case where it was like, what else would you like? And she's like, hats. So I'll probably be doing some baby hat knitting in the future too. So all about that. And then when I got home, I was surprised. So I thought I was done with my nest club, but it turns out the billing cycle is such that you get billed sometime in September for the fiber that you receive, or whatever. You get billed in the previous month or the fiber you receive the next month. So due to that, I canceled my subscription after the billing cycle. That meant I got the October. that apparently went for long. So I ended up getting the October colorway. It is Something Wicked, it is Finn, and it is sort of steely blue and browns, and then sort of a lighter blue and lighter browns. So, should be a fun adventure. Nice one for them, so not too crazy. So, I was surprised, like, wait a second, I thought I canceled. Apparently, I could have canceled at a different time. Oh. So, it was just funny. It was like, all of the stash positions. So, here's my assessment of Rhinebeck overall. I really enjoyed meeting people in real life. I wish I had set up my schedule in such a way where I could have hung out with those people specifically. Because, you know what? I get lots of opportunities to hang out with my mother-in-law. So, it's lovely when it happens. She's very sweet. On a greater diversity. There is a little bit of everything at Rhinebeck. So, I would say, but the thing is, there's not a lot of one thing at Rhinebeck, if that makes any sense. So if you say, for example, compare the Stitches Market, where sometimes it feels like the lowest common denominator, that's some of that at Rhinebeck. If you go to SSK and you have the curated, very carefully collection of independent people, you get that in India Untangled. You can get that with the people you always hear about, with other people talking about, like your Into the World and Miss Babs and Fiber Optic. So those people are there. But in terms of there being tons of indie dyers who are sort of like, you know, in the it crowd, not a ton. If you want to go for the super duper sheepy thing, definitely there. Talk with the farmers who have the things. You could do that at Taos. You could do that at Rhinebeck. Go with the special Millsman Green Mountain Spinneries there, Harrisville Designs there, Bartlett's Yarns there. That would be your super duper sheepy, like what you think wool was before you started becoming a snooty knitter. They're there. It's pretty. It's really gorgeous. So it'd be the case where going to Rhinebeck, there's always like a little bit. They're for every single thing, for every single taste, there's going to be a small amount of things that are going to immediately satisfy the desire, if that makes any sense. But it wasn't the case where there were oodles. So, like, if you wanted your well-curated indie dyers, like SSK is probably a better market to go to. Such as life. I've never seen so much fleece in my life. all together in whatever. They had taken probably half of one of their big buildings for just the fleece. There was a lot of fleece. I touched it all. But it's a revelation after having all of those experiences before. Yeah. What would it be? I wish I'd had a friend with me. That would be the primary thing. So it would be the case where, I think that would be the case with any fiber festival that was like, you want a buddy who has like similar taste to you with you to whatever, keep an eye out for cool things. We ended up doing show and tell with my mother-in-law and our knitting group. I was like, wow, how in the world did you find it? I totally missed it. So it was funny in that regard, because they ended up bringing back completely different things that ended up speaking to them. Whatever. I think maybe, or what, it was just the case where if you like something, there's probably one or two or three booths that probably do cater to that sort of thing. So that was interesting. Would I say that I need to go for the rest of my life? No, I like the reunion aspect of it the most, to be quite frank. It is sort of the confluence of dinners because that event is happening and everyone's gathered together. That's the big thing. What I missed out on this year is because it was 75, there wasn't nearly as much knitwear on display. So it's probably, this year was more like SSK in that regard, where it's the case where it's too hot to wear your knitting. Sorry, Charlie. So I did have a selection of finger and waist sweaters to bring. I brought all of them with me, so I got to break out my Hitafude, got to break out my boxy, got to break out two of my two boho sweaters. I was happy. I would say the experience was much more enjoyable on Sunday. It appeared to be the case where the people who were only going to go for one day only showed up on Saturday, and so the crowds were much, much bigger. I managed to have my apple cider donut experience on Sunday instead. That was better. I didn't want to wait in that long of a line. But for $1, totally, I got two and and apple cider. So, in that regard, the apple cider donut's a really good deal. Oh, shenanigans. So that would sort of be my take on it, is that it was much more enjoyable for the meeting of people than it was for any special thing that was happening in the market or the activities or something like that. I was so schedule oblivious, I ended up missing most of the activities, which was fine. I did briefly show up probably at the far tail end of the podcaster meetup, and I ended up talking with someone who was canoeing people who were wearing plaid. And then we commiserated about the availability of chili outside of New Mexico. Chile. But would it be? It was just the case where, what was it? As I was carrying around my bag of fleece, like someone's like, "Hey, could you explain what's going on?" And so then I sort of broke down what I was planning on doing with it, and then we exchanged Instagram names so that whatever you could watch the pictures, that sort of thing. But would it be? I'm glad that I finally got to go. I can understand why it is that the forums go dark then, because a lot of the people that I hang out with on the internet are there. So that was probably my favorite part of the Rhinebeck experience. Then I ended up waking up pretty early the next day, took the train back to the city, and what was it? Ended up sort of having my travel day back. It was ridiculous going back to work. I eventually settled back in, but I was like, why am I doing this? Oh wait, they pay me lots of dollars, okay. Oh well. So, I should be able to record next week. That'll be the 4th. I'm also hosting an event, but that's later. I'll now have to photograph and put everything away. That shouldn't be too crazy. It's still, the night is young. Unfortunately, this is a very long episode because I hit my 60-minute mark and now I've gone 10 more past. Such is life. And I'm probably casting on the Merino Llama Sea Cell as my next hat. I need something. May as well. Would it be? It inspires me right now, and that's, I think, the big thing. And then I'll be washing a lot of fleece. That's the problem with buying fleece, is you have to clean it. I'm too proud to send it to a mill at this point. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I don't know. It seemed to work out for some, or what was it? Because the Corriedale I ended up getting was definitely processed. So it's an option. I guess it depends on how much pain and suffering I feel while I'm combing this one, and I'll send it clean. So it's probably that would probably end up taking up a decent amount of the cost, is that it doesn't get to be washed. Trying to think what else. But I think that's everything. So I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. So take care, guys. Bye-bye.